Very good. I think we've all seen those videos of failed public proposals, where a man gets on his knees, he's invited all of his friends, there are people with cameras, then he asks the lady to marry him, and she unfortunately turns the poor fellow down and walks away in embarrassment. I think whenever we are approaching humorous speeches, we have that kind of mindset, we have that kind of trepidation that we are going to do something in public and we might end up failing. What is going to happen if the people in the audience do not understand your jokes, if they do not get them? You're going to be very embarrassed. The best case scenario is that they'll just not get the joke and you'll just continue with your speech. However, the worst case scenario is that they'll realize that you are trying to be funny. They'll try to laugh, but it won't be successful. They'll do a ha ha and then look at their feet in embarrassment. Both you and the audience are going to be embarrassed. However, by understanding what a humorous speech is to start with, then how to write it, and finally, how to deliver the speech that you've written with humor, I think you can approach a humorous speech or the humorous contest with much greater confidence. And that is what I hope to achieve through this tip session this evening. So the first thing we are going to cover is what exactly is a humorous speech. According to the current contest rulebook, a humorous speech needs to be thematic in nature. That is, it needs to have an opening, body, and conclusion. And it's not going to be a series of jokes the way that a stand-up comedian does it, where he has this series of jokes that are not really linked to each other, but are meant to be individually funny. Therefore, that would not count as a humorous speech. A humorous speech needs to have a point. It needs to, you need to be trying to communicate something with your speech, even though that point that you are going to be communicating is not the main thing about your speech. Your speech is to entertain the audience. However, it is essential that you have a speech that has a point. And typically, we would go with a humorous story. However, there are other options that you can explore. It is very important that your speech is a thematic one for the contest, because when you look at the points that are assigned to different aspects of your speech, the fact that the audience is going to laugh, that is, the audience response, gets about 15%. However, things like having a good opening body and conclusion gets 15 points. How effective you achieve the point in the speech gets 10 points, and the value of the speech gets 15 points. So if you ignore the fact that your speech needs to have some value for the audience, you're going to be foregoing a lot of points. Therefore, now I think you understand what exactly is meant to be a humorous speech, a thematic one, but funny. So how do you go about writing this humorous speech? I think we all have different senses of humor. However, when you're writing a speech, you need to go with the most kind of obvious jokes that you can make. It needs to be readily identifiable by the audience. It's very easy for the audience to miss subtle or obscure jokes. A rule of thumb is pretty much anything that you think to be funny, that if you laughed out loud, is very likely to be funny. However, you also need to test out your humorous stories and your humorous and your jokes with the people around you. Typically, in my personal life, I usually share my jokes with my wife. However, after 5 years of marriage, she is not afraid of telling me my jokes are not funny. I usually go ahead and post them on my status. However, I post them with with no expectation of making people laugh. it is my own personal thing. So before you present your speech at the contest, make sure that you test it. Test it with people that are going to be honest with you, and see the reactions to the jokes that you have in there. If they do not laugh, it's likely that those jokes are going to fall flat, and therefore you need to rewrite them. When you're thinking about the kind of humor to have in your story, the most ideal one is a humorous story where you recount a funny event that happened to you. It doesn't need to be an actual event. It could be something that you've made up. It could be something that happened to someone else as well. However, you need to tell it as if it is happening to you. We like to laugh at people who are making fun of themselves and the experiences that they've gone through. And therefore, that is a pretty good formula to go with. However, if you find that you do not have a humorous story, you could go the route of, first of all, writing any kind of thematic speech that you would like, then go through it and start with the introduction, see if there are stories or jokes that you can add in the introduction, or the body, and even the conclusion. So those are the two avenues that you can take. You could either have a story that narrates a humorous event, or have a thematic speech where you have added humorous stories and jokes throughout to make your audience laugh. And when you're thinking about what can be humorous, there are several things that make us laugh as individuals. First of all, right now, I would like you to take a few seconds to think about a joke that you find to be particularly funny. And as I'm going through these different types of humor, you can think about how it fits, in which category your joke would fit in. For example, the first type of thing that we laugh about is exaggerations. We like things that are stretched to the extremes of our imaginations tend to make us laugh. Incongruity also makes us laugh. This is where you have different ideas that have been put together in a very illogical manner. You have reverses where the audience is tricked towards the end of the joke by a change in viewpoints. You have definitions where the joke defines a word in a humorous way. And this is where I have my favorite joke. Being stressed is waking up screaming in the middle of the night, only to realize that you are not asleep to start with. You are just seated on your bed thinking about your problems. And then there's wordplay that you can have that can be used humorously, understatements, as well as implication jokes. Therefore, that will give you an idea of how to go about writing your speech. If you have a humorous event that you can talk about, definitely go with that. However, lacking that, write a thematic speech with stories and jokes spread out throughout the speech. And these different categories of types of jokes can guide you on what you need to talk about. Therefore, when you're done writing your speech, the delivery of a humorous speech is particularly important. And there are three major things that you need to keep in mind when you are preparing, and also when you're delivering your speech. Your speech needs to engage the emotions of the audience, and therefore it needs to be very heavy on vocal variety. You need to be extremely enthusiastic, and also your body language needs to contribute to attracting the attention of the audience. Therefore, when you are thinking about how important your voice is and your body language is, you need to, if you're delivering it on Zoom, you need to make sure that your audio is very clear so that they get all the nuances of your voice, and also your camera position and the lighting of where you are needs to present you in the best possible light. In addition to that, you need to be extremely confident when delivering a humorous speech, and therefore it requires more practice than you would typically devote to another type of speech. The reason for this is that the timing of the jokes, the timing of the punchline, the way that you deliver it is very important towards making your speech funny. And therefore, you need to keep practicing it until you've gotten that timing perfectly. However, in case your joke does not land, there are 5 things that you need to remember. First of all, do not blame us for your joke not being funny. It is you who picked it, and it is not our fault that we did not laugh. The second thing you need to remember is do not panic when your joke is not funny. Do not repeat it to the audience in order to try to help them to clarify the joke. Do not explain what the joke was. Do not apologize for telling a bad joke. The best thing that you can do when your joke does not land, simply proceed with the rest of your speech and make it to the conclusion. Therefore, remember those things. Your speech needs to be a thematic one. It needs to have a point. The best thing that you can go with is a story. However, peppering your speech with jokes and stories all along will help you. And then remember those 3 things when you're delivering your speech. Be confident, be emotional, and remember those 5 don'ts of when your jokes do not land. You may post your questions in the chat. I believe my time is up. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster of the day.